Good morning, folks. This is John Cogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. First, I would like to welcome everyone to this morning's webinar, T&E Expense Management, Right-Sizing Technology and Leveraging Best Practices. T&E Expense Management is a top concern for many companies in terms of internal risk management, in addition to being a significant area of expense. Effective T&E expense management becomes increasingly more difficult as companies grow across borders and through acquisitions. Current advances in technology and processes are allowing companies to not only manage these expenses more effectively, but to do so in an environment of better internal controls. The content of today's webinar will include an overview of T&E best practices, a look at current and emerging technologies in the area of T&E expense management, and insights from a company on the forefront of leveraging technology in managing T&E expenses across the enterprise. So first off, a quick welcome to Performative. To those of you for whom this is your first Performative event, Performative is the largest and fastest growing online community for senior finance, treasury, accounting, and related professionals. You're joining more than 600,000 finance and related leaders that we touch every month, and it's very simple. It's all about learning. So online, CFOs, controllers, treasurers, etc. ask questions, and then their peers answer. It's a very simple value proposition, Q&A with a peer-based community, and all of it is completely free. It's also ad-free and free of self-promotion. So it's a great place to learn about what you're trying to do at work. Check us out at performative.com. We certainly welcome you here today. Our live events, which are also all free, are an important part of what we do. A couple quick notes about this morning's event. Number one, a link to today's presentation and the video of today's presentation will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. So you'll simply get an email with a link, and you can go and grab the deck or take a look at the webinar video or share that out. So that's quick and easy. And this deck has actually already been posted. If you go to performative.com/resources, you'll see it right there on top. And of course, it is free anytime. So grab it now or whenever you'd like in the future. We do offer CPE credits, and today we'll be giving CPE credits, but you must answer 3 quick polling questions that we will ask during the event. So we'll have 2 polling questions kind of early on, and then 1 towards the end. They're actually not a test of are you listening so much as NADSPO wants to make sure you're here on the line. So we're not testing you for what you've learned, but just certainly making sure that you're here. And also there's some interesting statistical information that we're hoping to gather through these questions. So even if you're not here to get CPE credit, we'd love you to take 20 seconds and answer these questions. And speaking of questions, please ask questions as we go. There is a question area in your GoToWebinar control panel. If you'll take just a second and take a look at it there, you can expand that using the plus and ask a question at any time. Now, we won't get to the questions until the last part of today's webinar, but we do have 10 or 12 minutes at the end reserved for Q&A from the audience. So please feel free to ask at any time, and then we'll do our best to get to those questions at the end of today's webinar. Finally, when we complete today's webinar and you step off the webinar, you'll be prompted to take a short survey. It's literally 60 seconds or less, just a few multiple choice, yes, no kind of questions. We would greatly appreciate you taking a moment to do that. We always want to know how we can do this better the next time. And you're an integral part of that, so your feedback is very welcome. Finally, we have a number of learning objectives which are pretty straightforward. Understand current and emerging best practices of T&E, and essentially we'd like to help folks come up to speed with what's going on in the area of T&E and how you might be able to leverage these new capabilities at your company to increase controls, save money, and generally make life easier for everyone involved. And to help us do that today, I'd love to welcome our speaker, Catherine Sullivan. Catherine is a Senior Director at Concur, and she's worked at Concur for over 14 years. She currently holds the position of Senior Director of SMB Product Marketing. Previously, she served as the Senior Director of Product Strategy, where she drove the strategy for Concur's flagship expense reporting and invoice processing SaaS offering. prior to that, she worked as a licensed Series 6 and 63 lead project manager for Merrill Lynch in their 401k division. And Catherine, welcome to this morning's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and please take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining the webinar today. As John noted at the beginning of the call, I've had the honor of working at Concur for over 14 years now and have personally participated in the evolution of the automation of travel entertainment expense management. In today's call, I am pleased to share with you the market research that has been done by the Aberdeen Group on the benefits of automating your T&E expense management and providing you recommendations on how to take your automation to the next level to achieve significant cost savings and ROI. Corporate travel has long been considered an accepted cost of conducting business. In fact, expenses related to travel and entertainment encompass 8% to 12% of the average organization's total budget. With this significant level of corporate resources attributed to this complex spend arena, it has become critical for organizations in 2012 to approach expense management with next-generation strategies and solutions, which ultimately ensures that they are driving value from the T&E category. Top-performing organizations are reporting that they automate their T&E expense management they see, and with that, they're seeing 60% lower expense processing costs than other companies. As evidenced through Aberdeen Group's research study, technology plays a pivotal role in the modern T&E expense management program. However, when looking at how next-generation capabilities will affect the landscape of solutions within the expense management space, Aberdeen Research has discovered that the cloud is targeted as a long-term solution within the average organization's expense management technology roadmap. In looking at the future of expense management technology, the vast majority of organizations are expected to leverage either a cloud-based solution or a hybrid mix, which is a cloud and on-premise solution. This directly reflects the next generation aspects of T&E expense management over the next decade. Organizations will look to the cloud for simple, accessible for all travelers and executives, and as well as the real-time components of analytics and reporting.
Okay, so nothing like jumping right into the poll questions quickly. I'm going to go ahead and launch the first of two poll questions that we're going to do right in a row here. And once again, if you're here for CPE credits, you do need to answer these. But even if you're not, statistically speaking, we'd love to see where you sit. With these questions, it just takes 5 or 10 seconds, and we will be sharing the results when we get into the Q&A period, so everyone will benefit from seeing where all the votes came in. So we'll give about 45 seconds here. I see questions coming in from the audience already. That's great. Some of them are clarifying questions. Some of them are questions for the speaker at Q&A. Just feel free to add your own questions at any time. They are anonymous, so don't worry. We won't put your name out there with your question, and we'd love to see them so we can get them answered. All right, at this point, I'm going to close this poll question, and we're actually going to go right into the second poll question. And we'll give another 35 or 40 seconds for this one. This one's really easy. I'm just trying to get a view of where folks' heads are at on this. Once again, if you're here for CPE, you really need to take this. If not, we'd still love to see what you have to say here. We'll leave this open for another 5 seconds, and then we will get right back in. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and close this down and get right back to Catherine.
All righty. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Excellent. When companies leveraging an automated end-to-end travel and expense management solution, they're able to see immediate benefits over companies without an automated solution in place. The Aberdeen Group T&E Expense Management 2012 research reported these companies saw significant value. As you can see here on this slide, these companies were seeing that their expense processing costs were decreased by 50%. The time to complete a single expense report was 27% faster. And last but definitely not least, they reported that their reimbursement cycle time was 40% faster thanks to the mobile applications. When companies choose to automate their travel and expense management in the cloud, they are reporting additional benefits such as, let's see here if this will advance for me. Alrighty. So as I was saying, when companies choose to automate their T&E expense management in the cloud, they're reporting additional benefits above and beyond what you saw in the slide before with those stats. When they've gone to the cloud, they're noticing an additional 27% lower expense processing costs than users of an on-premise solution, 22% higher rate of compliance to the corporate travel policies and guidance, and 22% higher rate of business travel spend under management. These companies that manage travel and expense in the cloud are able to lower their costs and increase compliance because it's easier to follow policies when they are easily accessible via mobile devices. Regardless of the level of travel and expense automation taking place, when the Aberdeen Group took a look at the top expense management priorities of executives last year, 57% of them were concerned with getting more value out of business travel. This issue is huge for our customers. We work with so many of the Fortune 500 companies, and for them, business travel isn't going away, nor do they want it to. They just wanted to find a way to get more out of it. The Aberdeen Group used 3 key performance metrics to distinguish the best-in-class from industry average and laggard organizations. The 3 key metrics used in the survey were 1, compliance to corporate policies concerning T&E, 2, business travel spend under management, and 3, the cost to process an expense report. Now, when we're thinking about the cost of that expense report, it includes costs from processing regarding the accounting, auditing, report creation, review, approval time, and etc. So it really is all-encompassing cost. Best-in-class organizations in the T&E Expense Management research study are noted for their superior performance across 3 major metrics and their advantages over all of the other companies. These top-performing organizations have driven 60% lower expense processing costs, experienced a 43% higher rate of business travel spend under management, and achieved a 31% higher rate of company corporate policy compliance. Now, this represents the top 20% of the companies that were surveyed. As you can see on the slide here, what they're seeing is 90% compliance, 85% control, and the cost averaging about $7.91 per expense report. The middle 50% of the aggregated performance scorers are part of the industry average category. Not necessarily terrible here, but there is definitely room for growth and improvement in this category. They are getting close to the best in class, and in most cases, they only may need a few tweaks to take the performance to the next level, such as using the cloud-based solution or utilizing mobile devices. What you can see here is that 77% compliance to corporate policies concerning T&E are in this category. We see 64% business travel spend under management, and the average cost of about $17.87 to process a single expense report. Now, in the laggard category, this is the bottom scale of the best-in-class maturity framework for Aberdeen's survey. These are the bottom 30% of the aggregated performance scores. A tremendous amount of change is needed for these companies. For example, typically these companies are using a manual-based process that involves a lot of paper and a lot of touch points by a human. In addition, they're also not using mobile technology and are not utilizing the cloud technology. Now, in this category, you can see here that 40% compliance to corporate policy concerning T&E is in place, and that they're looking at about 19% business travel spend under management. And here, to me, is really telling when you look at the actual cost of these expense reports with all these manual touch points is approximately $25.72. Pretty significant difference between the best in class, which was at a cost point of about $7.91. Now I'd like to share with you a case study of a client that went from a manual-based process to a completely automated travel and entertainment expense management process with Concur. Educational Data Systems is a training company headquartered in Dearborn, Michigan, and basically have simply outgrown their manual expense management system. Reconciling corporate card statements with expense reports, tracking down errors, keeping track of receipts, and processing reimbursements had become inefficient and very time-consuming. Employees basically spent hours creating expense reports and spreadsheets, and many were confused about the company's travel policies, which resulted in less than optimal compliance. Furthermore, the company had zero visibility into travel spend, complicating decisions about resource allocation and budgeting and making it impossible to negotiate preferred vendor discounts and deals. With close to 200 travelers and expectations of future growth, Educational Data Systems, Inc. needed an automated and integrated corporate card and expense reporting solution to gain efficiencies, boost compliance, and achieve visibility into expense data. The company was determined to reduce the cost of expense report processing and to shorten their reimbursement approval and delivery time and leverage travel spend data more efficiently. Educational Data Systems, Inc. chose to automate and integrate with its expense management solution with Concur, and they chose the Concur Expense product and the American Express corporate card. Implementation took about a month. The benefits will likely impact the company for years, and the performance advantages of integrating the corporate card and the expense management solution were swift and impressive. For example, you can see here the accounting staff hours spent processing expense reports had been slashed by 60 to 70%. Employee hours devoted to generating expense reports had been reduced by 75%. And then the reconciliation time frame with the credit card statements and the expense reports had been reduced by 50%. Expense reimbursement time is 4 times faster now that they've automated. And compliance to T&E policies has improved from approximately 80% to 95%. And to me, the most impressive stat here is when you look at the visibility into the travel expenses went from 0 to 100%. Now let's transition and spend some time learning more about the power of mobile technology in the T&E expense management process. Aberdeen research has found that companies currently leveraging mobile travel and expense management applications have achieved an advantage in performance in comparison with organizations not currently leveraging mobile solutions with their automated systems. Companies currently leveraging mobile travel and expense management applications report advantages over peers without this next-generation enabler in place. For example, nearly 40% lower expense processing costs, 22% higher rate of compliance to corporate travel policies and guidelines, and 20% higher rate of business travel under expense management. You can see here on my slide where we've got the comparison here where you've got companies using mobile users or having mobile users and ones that do not. With compliance to corporate travel policies and guidance, you see that they have 76% when they're using mobile devices and 59% for non. The next one being business travel spend under management. When you have a mobile device, it's higher, 66%, and without it's down to 53%. Here's also a very, I think, important stat for everyone to note that when you look at the cost of processing a single expense report, you see a dramatic difference between those that have mobile devices enabled and those who do not. The mobile-enabled ones are at a cost of $13.10, whereas the non-mobile users are at $21.30. The travel and expense management capabilities enabled by mobile applications range from simple processes, such as the ability to enter in new expenses and submit these expenses, to more complex functionalities that improve deeper aspects of T&E expense management, such as importing corporate card data. One of the major benefits of T&E expense management is the capability to photograph and digitally attach receipts to mobile expense reports. This factor eliminates the need to maintain receipts from meals and or ground transportation. By utilizing mobile applications for expense management processes, the average business traveler can save over 4 hours per month in productivity. Nearly 25% of current mobile users are leveraging tablet devices for entering and approving expenses, viewing itineraries, and altering reservations. Nearly 40% of mobile users are leveraging their devices to view fellow employee travel plans and current locations. Now let's talk about integration and how this even takes the automation of travel and expense management to the next level. In addition to driving increased compliance and lowering costs, best-in-class companies are nearly 46% more likely than their others to integrate CRM with expense management systems. With the majority of business travelers residing on the sales team, there is strategic value in lining a system that sales reps use, often with the Enterprise Travel and Expense Management Program. Organizations currently integrating their CRM and expense management systems are more likely to have real-time visibility into both pre-trip travel against corporate budgets and total T&E spend against corporate budgets. So here are two key things that I want to point out. Organizations that have integrated the two systems are seeing, the slide will come up here in just a moment, 72% more likely to have real-time visibility into pre-trip approval against corporate travel, and 56% more likely to have real-time visibility into total T&E spend against budget. These two aspects play critical roles in the knowledge of how business travel impacts the closing of deals and build relationships with clients. In addition, the integration of these systems can help organizations gain insight into costs associated with sales opportunities and service agreements. Now I'd like to transition over to John to get an executive perspective. John?
Thank you very much. So when we dig further into the Aberdeen group and some of the statistics that they pulled out through their study, and we look at the expense management priorities for the companies in the group that they studied, you see that improving intelligence through analytics and reporting was important for 42% of this group, improving visibility into the overall travel spend for above 50%, and actually between 50 and 60% for that, driving more value out of business travel and improving expense management processes. Now, speaking as, and I just introduced myself thoroughly before, but I'm a four-time CFO, and I've been in finance for 20 years at companies as big as Cardinal Health and as small as startups. It's interesting, T&E expense management I think becomes more important based on the stage of your company and the size of your company and even the industry you're in. And it's interesting, Catherine gave an example earlier of a company which wasn't a huge company, but they had an awful lot of people traveling. So that's something that's probably an industry-specific element. And other companies may have 1,000 folks, and maybe they're all in manufacturing or all in engineering. And maybe there's not a lot of travel. So there is a continuum along which T&E expense management becomes more important, and that varies based on a number of corporate factors. But I think in general, for companies of any size with any significant either number of people traveling or significant T&E dollars being spent, the visibility into those expenditures and the time spent managing all of those dollars and checking them against policy and spent on reimbursements, et cetera, those become significant line items. And they're not just significant line items in terms of the dollars that you're spending on that, but also in terms of the people hours spent on processing and actually the satisfaction of both management and the travelers themselves. So nothing's more annoying than being stuck spending hours on managing Excel spreadsheets and they're going back and forth with the folks in the accounting organization as they're processing your T&E and asking you questions and where are the receipts, et cetera. And so these priorities, I'd say, line up directly with the concerns of folks in finance and accounting organizations, and they're not terribly surprising. I think the one thing that many organizations don't ask themselves about is the drive more value out of business travel. That is an interesting and sort of unique question because it's not about managing the process. It's not about necessarily the direct dollars and cents, but it's about value, which is a little more subjective. But this is something that companies are asking themselves increasingly, such as if anyone out there is familiar with President's Club and sending all the sales folks, not to pick on sales, out to Hawaii to celebrate the success in the past year. That's a value question, and that's a question that finance leaders are increasingly being asked to weigh in on. How much did we get out of spending those dollars? Did it make sense to go out and actually visit all of our customers last quarter? The answer may be yes or no, but I think what's interesting about this number here is that more companies are actually asking themselves that question because they want to know. It's not just about getting out to the customers now. It's about what are we getting for that travel. Are there other ways we can accomplish what we want without T&E, or perhaps they find out that doing that travel is actually critical to the goals of their business. Now, the top expense management challenges, I don't think these will come as much surprise. We'll start at the bottom of the screen with the top challenge, lack of compliance to T&E policies. This one's really difficult to get your arms around. It's very easy as a CFO or accounting leader to say, here are our policies. You can't spend more than $150 a night on accommodations, and then et cetera, et cetera. Well, the fact is, if you make a last-minute travel plan out to Hong Kong, you might not be able to find anything for less than $250. Well, that's out of policy. So it's not that every company wants to have 100% compliance with policies, because that might be impractical. What you want to have is visibility. You want to maximize your control. You want to let your people know in the easiest way possible, here are our policies, and let them know in advance when possible if they're about to trip over a policy even while they're making plans. That sort of thing saves everyone a lot of time and trouble with post-travel process where now you're going back and forth with the T&E management folks at your company explaining why your hotel was $100 out of policy. We'd like to either skip that altogether by having visibility to it up front, or if you're managing that process, you want to have the greatest compliance possible up front. Enhancing expense management analytics. When companies are on Excel, and I've dealt with this at actually pretty large companies, managing T&E on Excel, your visibility is close to zero. How do you roll up hundreds, possibly, of spreadsheets and actually build analytics, even simple analytics, such as what percentage of our spend is on airfare versus hotel versus meals? Is there a seasonality effect to our travel expenses? Doing analytics that actually allow you to impact your cost, to impact your compliance. That's difficult to do when you're not on an automated system. And moving on, and back to Catherine with recommendations. Please take it back.
Excellent. Thank you, John. So now I'd like to give you 3 key takeaways of how you can take your T&E automation to that next level. First and foremost, look to cloud technology. There are solutions based in the cloud that empower you and your travelers to really be able to access this data very easily. I know personally that I'm able to log into the web at any time or through my mobile device, since we use our own solution based in the cloud. Next, the recommendation is to truly enhance and enable mobile solutions with your automation for T&E. Now, the key, and I can speak from personal experience here too, that when you use a mobile device, you're able to capture those receipts real time. You take a picture of it, you're able to upload it, and digitally attach it to your expense report. And in essence, then, in those small receipts, for example, your taxi cab or a dining receipt that doesn't require additional attendees and so forth, you could potentially just throw that away after you're done so that you have less paper in your pockets or in your briefcases and so forth. So really look to leverage those mobile applications. And last, Take your integration to the next level with integrating your CRM and expense management systems for improving expense management capabilities, including real-time visibility and real-time access into intelligence regarding business travel and its ramifications on both the customer and client relationships to the corporate budget. You can see here with CRM and ERP, you're able then to have a seamless integration of the data flow and not having to enter data into two different systems. This is able to really take you to that next level of having that integration and automation in place to give you that next level of benefit and ROI. With that, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you this information, and I'm going to hand it back to John, who's going to spend some time with the polling questions, and then we'll transition to Q&A. John?
Great. Thank you very much, Catherine. And, you know, it's interesting. At the very end there, you mentioned data entry into multiple systems. And it's funny that didn't really come up earlier. But obviously that is one consideration when folks are using tools that aren't integrated with their accounting systems, for instance, so using Excel templates, et cetera, where folks are keying information into that system, and then someone in an accounting organization somewhere is rekeying information, or you would have to build some sort of customized integration into Excel and pulling that into their ERP system. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into the third and final poll question. Once again, required for those here for CPE credit, not required for others, but we would ask actually that you take the 30 seconds to take a look at this question and answer it, because statistically speaking, we'd love to see where folks are at, and we are going to share the results from all three polls as soon as we're done here. And we'll ask Catherine for comments on that. At the same time, I can say we've got a half dozen or so questions queued up. But if you do have any questions that you'd like to get in front of Catherine, now is a good time to ask. And we'll do our best to get to that in the remaining time of this morning's webinar. And with that, why don't I go ahead and ask for any last moment votes, and we'll close down the poll at this point. And let's go ahead and start in the order we asked these questions, and we'll share the answers out. So the first polling question, how automated is your company's T&E expense collection? And here we have the full continuum from not a bit to very automated and integrated, et cetera. Catherine, what's your take on what you're seeing here? Is this more or less a typical spread of what you see amongst your clients?
Definitely. We, specifically in the SMB market, we run into a lot of companies are using Excel or just using, as you noted here, just more random pieces of paper and faxes. That is definitely still very predominant in the market. And then with the integration with ERP, that's great to see. And then last but not least here, I'm really impressed with the 11% that are using cloud-based solutions. That is showing the market trends that more and more companies are moving to the cloud. That's great.
Yep. All right, let's hop into the next one, which was a little simpler. And I think some folks might be asking themselves, well, why is it 100%? And I think actually this probably lends itself to that continuum I was talking about earlier, where for some companies maybe it just doesn't quite make sense to automate T&E. Maybe they're too small, they got one traveler, it's not worth the effort, et cetera. But what do you think about this, Catherine?
I would agree with you. I could see that in some businesses the travel is so light that they might not proceed to see the value in it. So that you would have some, smaller percentage there under the no. But the 91% definitely, I could see that being as high as it is, that there is a lot of value, and customers are really starting to see that. And the opportunity to automate is so easily accessible now than it was previously in the past.
Yep. And then finally, my company's biggest problem with T&E automation is a fair number of folks haven't sufficiently researched what's available, and obviously that takes time, and that's why some people are here. So I can't say that's surprising. What do you think about the rest of what we see here?
I'm just sitting here quickly reading it through. it's interesting. We've not had time yet to research it. This is a great one because I would encourage everyone to access the information on the web. As an industry, T&E Automation has done a great job of getting more information out there for you with white papers and videos, and literally there's some great information you can read through or watch within 3 to 5 minutes. So I'd encourage everyone to Google that, and you'll see some great results. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not surprised that some still are also seeing that T&E systems they've looked at in the past were too expensive. You know, in the past it was quite expensive to automate your T&E. A lot of times, Concur included, in the years past, there would have been an implementation fee. It could have taken a long time, but I can speak only for Concur, so keeping that in perspective, we really have transitioned and have created models now that there are no implementation fees up front, and there's a low monthly cost, which aligns with truly the cloud models that you'll see out there. So I'd encourage everyone to revisit that, and they're going to be very, very pleased with the price points that you'll find out there in the market. I was a little surprised by the benefits one, not seeing the value in that and the benefits of these systems for their company. So that would be an area I'd love to learn more about. So if others could, you know, put in the questions or comments, information around that, I'd greatly appreciate that.
And we've got a lot of questions coming in here.
Oh,
so
excellent.
Let's go ahead and start working our way through these. First off, I think just related to what you were just saying, we have a question here. What website should we Google? I mean, what's the best, fastest way for folks who are online here to learn more?
Excellent question. What you can do is go into Google and just type in expense reports, and what will come up, you'll see that there's various companies out there that provide automated T&E, and you're able to go to these websites, and typically what you'll find is there's literature on each one of those slides that give you an overview of if they're a cloud-based solution, if they have mobile capabilities. I'd encourage you to, you know, look at all of the vendors and really understand what you're looking for and how that matches to your needs. As I noted earlier in the presentation, we talked about the mobile capabilities. We didn't spend a lot of time per se on the expense capabilities, but you're going to be very, very pleased to find how robust automation has come with T&E Expense Management and how many different things you can do and personalization that you can have in each system. So when you see those vendors, you'll be able to click through and do some research, you know, watch some of the videos, read the white papers that are available in the various vendors and so forth.
I would also just toss in to the ring a suggestion for check Performative. There have actually been a few peer-based community discussions around T&E management. So you'll be able to see what, you know, CFOs and controllers and others on Performative have been talking about. Great. Also, one thing that we like to do, and actually Catherine will see if we can work with you afterwards, is post some of these questions and answers on Performative so that Catherine and others can weigh in. And we've actually had a lot of questions here. I won't get into all of them because they're around a similar theme, which is how do I learn more?
Right.
So perhaps we can help folks out and post some links on Performative that will help them learn more.
That would be great.
Okay. Let's see. So that knocked a few of them out. Actually, one quick note, and thank you for this, Gloria, on that third poll question, my company's biggest problem with automation, she points out that the other was probably so large because we didn't have a category for those who had already automated, and those probably chimed in with others. So that was our mistake, my mistake. Okay, so we have a whole plethora of questions here. I'll just start plucking them quickly. Okay. Catherine, here's a question about receipt policy. So what do you see amongst your really large client base in terms of receipt requirements? Are they required for all expenditures? Are there certain dollar level thresholds? And how does that vary based on size? Like if you're Cisco, do you let people get away with no receipts for anything less than $100, or does that not even matter?
That's a great question. And it does vary by different company sizes and also companies in different verticals. So, for example, what I primarily see is that companies set a threshold. And there are some companies that are comfortable with $75 or some that are comfortable with any receipt that's $50 and under, where they might not require a receipt. So let me give you some examples. I can speak to how Concur does it personally in our best practices approach. If it's $25 or less and it's not on your corporate card, they do not require a receipt. Now, if it's above that and you didn't use your corporate card, then there is a requirement to have a receipt uploaded into the system. One thing you will find that certain receipts, no matter what, need to be available, and that would be, let's say, for example, when you go to a hotel, companies will require you to have an itemized receipt that you can upload into the system and validate that. Now, some companies, such as Concur, have electronic receipts that are available. And how that works is really interesting that, such as with Concur, we have a system where we engage directly with these vendors and we're doing data exchange. So instead of me getting my hotel receipt, the paper copy when I'm actually at the hotel, it is sent through the Concur expense system and it's uploaded for me. I don't need to have that paper receipt. So if I were to just kind of step back again and then go back to the core question, it can vary depending on the size of the company and potentially the vertical and what receipts to require. But typically you will find that companies will set a dollar amount that they're okay with, say $25 and under, that do not require receipts unless it's maybe a very specific type of expense, like a business meal, where they might want to have you do that. But in expenses above that threshold would typically require some type of receipt or it being on a corporate card.
And thank you for that. And you mentioned something in passing that I want to go back to real quickly. Now, I've seen a lot of systems that will suck in your credit card information, which is hugely, hugely convenient. And they'll even remember or guess at what category of spend.
Right.
Expenses, or knows McDonald's is a meal, for instance.
Right.
But you mentioned something which sounds like the next level of integration, which is that the hotel itself, like that bill, would actually be pulled into a system. Is that broadly in use these days, or how widespread is that?
You know, it's becoming more popular. There are different definitions of what we call an e-receipt. Some companies will call an e-receipt just a photograph of your receipt that you've uploaded and attached, and it'll have, you know, the information based on what was just taken of that picture. Concur's definition of an e-receipt is actually the data received directly from the vendor. So we get information directly from hotels and car rental agencies, and also from what you call the GDS system for the airline itinerary information. And when you have a direct line and you're able to get that electronic data directly from the vendors, you're able to get additional information. For example, on the hotel itemization that comes in through the system, it actually will itemize out the expense for you. So what does that mean? When I get my hotel receipts in the system, I look, and it already has done each one of my line items. It shows my nightly expense, that being for the room rate, and then the tax rate, and then maybe any additional expenses that I had, like room service. It'll itemize it for me, and so I'm able to go in, since it was electronically given, I can go through and just say, yes, if I need to mark something as personal, let's say I use the laundry service, I can mark that as personal, and then it reflects that in the bill. So truly, at the end of my travels, typically how I do this for myself is I go through, I look at all my corporate card charges that were pre-populated into the system that have that electronic data, and then the e-receipts we got from the vendors. And I go through and I just basically review. I might have to add in an attendee for a business meal where I took a client out for dinner. I'll add in their information. But other than that, it's really just a review process for me, and then I click submit, and off it goes to my manager, who then very quickly is able to access that via his mobile device and see all of that electronic data that I didn't have to manually enter, which we all know sometimes when you manually enter information in, it can have some errors with it. You know, with that electronic data, you're not having to worry about the errors that you typically would see with manual entry.
And what percentage of the companies within Concur's network, for instance, provide that detailed level e-receipt?
Percentage-wise, I don't have an answer for you on that, but we have e-receipts coming from all of the major hotel lines and all of the major car rental agencies. So like in hotels, you've got the Hyatt, you've got the Marriott and so forth, and then the rental car, you've got Hertz and Avis and so forth. And then with the itinerary information that comes in through our GDS system, or we're able to capture that information in, you get all of the itinerary information that, with all the different airlines that's available. And that one that's interesting when you talk about itineraries, it gives you the information, for example, on the airfare details. It'll tell you what level of class. So did I go first class, did I go business class, or did I go coach? It'll give me a breakdown of the fees. So all of that's already pre-entered in for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you, Catherine, about all that first class travel.
I know I get a little out of control.
Yeah, that happens. Okay. We've got a number of questions here about the size of company for which T&E automation makes sense. So I think a number of the examples we've given today are with, mid-sized and larger company, a lot of travel. It's probably almost, obvious at that point to do all this automation. But at what size do you guys typically see it making sense for some level of automation? Certainly the cloud has brought the bar way down in terms of cost and complexity. So is it 10 employees, 50 employees? Where do you see folks adopting these days?
That's a really fair question, and it does vary. So we're seeing a significant amount of growth in our small business market. And we have solutions at Concur that are also designed for someone who just wants it as an individual. So they want to, maybe it's a 5-person company and only one person travels or has expenses. So they're just looking for that ease of use. So we have a product that they could quickly implement with no upfront cost that is a user-based kind of model that's very cost-effective. So we are seeing a significant increase in that. Where we see probably the most that go into maybe 10 employees, and above, you start looking at, maybe 4 out of those 10 are doing expense reports on a regular basis, and then the others might do occasional ones. That we're seeing a lot of growth there, and I truly believe it's because there are no upfront cost in those models that are designed and those solutions that are designed really for those types of companies. There's a best practice model that you can implement within less than 30 days with no upfront cost and a minimal monthly fee. So based on that, as I touched on in the presentation, I think removing the barriers of those large consulting fees and those large monthly costs that used to be in the market many years ago has really empowered and enabled smaller companies now to take advantage of it and immediately see benefits. They don't have to be a 200-person company. They can be a 10-person company and see the ROI within the first month of deploying the service.
So let's drill down on that just a little bit. What's the so for a cloud-based platform, what's the typical economic model? Is it just a per user per month kind of thing, or you tell me?
Well, it can vary. So some companies will be user-based models, and that can be that can be beneficial to some companies who just only maybe want 1 or 2 to use it. At Concur, we kind of have a blend where we talk about the individual size, kind of the real smaller companies. We have a model where you can base your pricing off of individuals, and so it's a monthly user fee. When you transition and you're looking at a product we call Concur Standard or Concur Professional or Concur Force, which is an expense application built on the Salesforce platform, those are all expense report based types of fees. So, for example, there's no upfront fees, for Standard or Concur Force, and then there's just a monthly fee per expense report submitted. So you're not locked into saying, I've chosen these 5 users and they're the only ones who use the system. It really is enabling your entire employee base to use it if they need it, but you're not charged for it if they don't use it. So you look at what your average monthly bill, or not monthly bill, your average expense report submission rate is, and that's what you'd want to align with. And then you're able to say, okay, maybe I'm not traveling that month, but my peer Brandy is. So it's just really just paying for what you use.
Interesting. Okay. And in terms of integration, how easy or difficult is it to integrate a T&E system into your typical ERP/accounting system?
Now that can vary based on the solution you choose. I can really only speak to Concur, so kind of putting that out there once again. With Concur, we have built what we call Concur connectors that are pre-built solutions that allow you to engage with ERP systems and CRMs. For example, we have a connector for Salesforce if you're currently using one of our applications called Concur Professional or Concur Standard, where basically there's no setup fee. There's a monthly fee for the connector, but our team hooks it up for you through web services. And then there's also connectors for ERPs. For example, there's a connector for NetSuite, and there's a connector for Intuit's QuickBooks.
So by connector, you mean it's kind of out of the box, ready to integrate?
Exactly. Yes. We're here to help you. So Concur, our philosophy is to provide you guidance and best practices approach, and we're here to help you implement. So when you purchase a service, you're given a implementation consultant who coaches you through that process and gives you advice on best practices and also helps you with configuring the system. And with that, you can also have the connectors that are pre-built that we help you configure and plug and play, per se, with ERPs and CRMs that we've currently built them for. Now, if you have one that is not currently in a pre-built or it's not one of the pre-built connectors we have team members here that can build these connectors from scratch. So it's definitely, I think, now that companies like Concur and other companies out there that do T&E automation, they're really utilizing the web services, and being cloud-based, it's really taking us to new levels of efficiency that you can build these links, which I personally thought was truly kind of the missing links in the years past. When you looked at the cloud, it was so hard to connect two different cloud-based solutions. Well, that now has totally changed, and the industry has embraced that we've got to make it simple and engaging for our customers to connect data and share data in the cloud.
Gotcha. Now, I've actually had just a couple quick questions based on this very conversation, so let me ask. You mentioned a couple of platforms that you guys have sort of pre-built integrations with. How about SAP, Oracle, and the Microsoft business products?
We have a lot of customers using all of those systems, and we do have the ability to get connectors for them.
Okay. All right. One of the first questions we got today actually is one of my faves. This is coming from a CFO at a company who has installed fully integrated T&E system, and one of the great challenges here is getting the executives to use the software. And the executives are complaining, hey, it's easier just for me to fill out an Excel spreadsheet. Do you hear that much, and what do you say about that? How do you anesthetize against that or show people the light?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was just recently visiting a customer in San Francisco who I believe their employee size was about 100, 150 employees, and they were noting that a few of their key executives were on the road so much that, and they personally just were not real open to having to do expense reports, period. And I think, there are some out there that are still transitioning and wanting to, go back to what they're used to. But what we're seeing is with the ability of the mobile devices and the adoption that travelers are having with all the different apps that are available to make your life easier, they're seeing the advantages of automating the T&E and the clouds and with the mobile devices that they're starting to convert. You might say they're starting to see the light. For me, I use my iPad a lot and my mobile device because I do travel a lot. It really does make my travel easier, and what I see my administrators doing is really relating it back to the executives and encouraging them to see, here's value and how this is going to make your life easier is X, Y, Z.
Yeah, it's funny just putting my CFO hat back on. I've dealt with the executives who A, travel a lot, B, are crazy busy, not like the rest of us
Yep.
aren't equally crazy busy, and C, they just don't like filling out expense reports, period.
Yep.
And what I've seen in my past is that a lot of executives feel like they are, because of their executive position, allowed to do less with regards to all sorts of things, whether it's compliance with policies to filling out detail on T&E. So what I've seen coming into companies as CFO very frequently is executives just not filling out the expense reports. They do it very infrequently. You have to go and bug them and say, hey, it's been 3 months, and I know you must have $6,000 or $8,000 at the company.
Right.
And I found the best way to appeal to those folks because, frankly, they're gumming up the entire works. In finance, we have to be accruing for their T&E expenses, even though they're not reporting them, which is a whole hairball into itself. And then if we're getting poorly detailed or incomplete T&E, then that just means that my team now has to spend that much more time extracting that information ex post facto. It's actually a nightmare. So I always have tried to propose to them that they'll get paid much more quickly, and there will actually be a lot less bugging from my team to them personally if they'll just use this tool, which really automates all of this. And look, it's neat. It taps right into your credit card, and I'll even help them get it set up. I'll have someone on my team help them get it set up. But that's a real problem, getting folks to just pick these tools up if they don't want to do it in the first place.
Yeah, and I think you hit on some important notes there. When you really start looking at the different things you can do around automation, that credit card integration makes a huge difference in how fast it takes you to complete an expense report. And so if you can get your executives using the credit cards and having that directly fed into your system, right then and there, you're immediately reducing a lot of the burden that's on them, but you're also able to see how much spend is out there that hasn't been processed. Because when that credit card information comes in, you now have access to look at what's still pending that needs to be processed that you didn't have before. Right. So I would agree, taking that first step to get that credit card integration and then also coaching them to see how this is going to make their life easier and how it has evolved. I mean, because a lot of them will have kind of the flashbacks, right, of the older days when expense reporting was really painful and people dreaded it. Now it's very, very different.
Much better now. And with that, I'm actually going to call the Q&A to a close. We had a few questions we didn't get to. I apologize. I'm going to work with Catherine, and we'll do our best to get all of these questions posted on the site where Catherine plus others can weigh in on them. I just want to do a little quick housekeeping here. First off, if you have any questions whatsoever about CPE credits, you'll see Tanya Walsh's email address at the bottom of this slide. She runs our CPE program. Any questions at all, just zap them to her. She'll take care of you very quickly. You'll be prompted to take a short survey once you step off of this webinar. And actually included in that survey, you can request that we connect you with Catherine if you have any further questions or would like to ask her anything about the Concur platform. Please feel free. It's just a mouse click away, and we'll do the email, and it's very simple. Finally, of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Concur. They and other sponsors of Performative allow us to do everything we do at Performative at no cost to our users, which we love. I know our users love that. So a great thanks to Concur. And obviously, they know a lot about T&E, and they provided Catherine, who really covered a lot of great information today. Catherine, thank you so much for your time and knowledge. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. And finally, thanks to everyone who made it this morning. We'll let you go now, and we hope to see you again real soon, either at performative.com or on another event. Take care, everyone. Have a great week. Cheers.